Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Racer TV. This is Behind the Bars. My name's Griffin Cotter, and I'm alongside Jared Bolton, GNCC's junior trail boss. How we doing, Jared?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hanging out in the basement with all my precious memories because I can't go out in the woods and stick arrows on trees.
There you go. So who else we got with us? So we have a couple, three legends, I believe.
Yeah, we've also got Barry Hawk, we got Charlie Mullins, and we got Mike Lafferty, who coincidentally are the top three overall from this race. So it's really cool to have these guys on here. They're going to have way better insight to me and you, Griff. This is going to be really cool.
Yeah, so we are revisiting the 2005 Yadkin Valley Stomp. Charlie Mullins, this was your first race in the XC1 Pro class.
Yeah, well, we actually got talking, me, Barry, and Mike, and it's actually technically my second race in the Pro class. I did one the year before at Ironman, the last race of the year, but ended up wrapping up 250A early this year and kind of made the full step to the Pro class moving forward from this race on. So, yeah, it was kind of, I guess, technically my second race, but still kind of my first in some ways.
A lot of stuff had already happened in the season for you, Barry. You know, when you lined up today, what was going through your head?
Yeah, honestly, looking back on this, I'll be 100% honest. I wasn't real sure of the results. I had to do some research, and I see that I won, which was good. But honestly, I've raced so many GNCCs. I don't know what was going through my mind that day. Probably just like every other race that I get line up is get a good start, stay up front, minimize the mistakes, and trying to be at the right place at the right time. And it worked out this day for me.
Mike, you finished third in this race. Do you remember, what was kind of going through your head lining up that day and getting on the line and getting ready to take off?
Yeah, I think I had early in the 2005. I broke my shoulder in South Carolina, so I was off for quite a while. And I think this might have been my first race back from that, or maybe second. I'm not really sure when I came back from that, but I remember I was getting tired of getting beat by being the second guy with KTM. Before U-Haul was Shane and Shane Watson, and he was always, beat me there. And then I go to an Enduro and be the top guy. And I go to a GC and I'd be the second place guy. And I was always getting tired of that. So I was trying to get my stuff together, it seemed like, or just trying to be the top KTM guy. And of course, against U-Haul, the guy was phenomenal. This guy was unbelievable. So it was, it was a hard thing for me to try and, not only win a GNCC, but to beat that guy was a really hard feat.
Sure. So we have the top three overall on the show here today, but none of y'all got the whole shot. Who was that, Jared? Number 16 that took the whole shot there.
Yeah, that was Nate Caney. And it's funny, in the years that U-Haul raced, it was actually Doug Henry beat him when Doug showed up from Florida. Barry beat him, and Nate Caney ended up beating him the next year. It's really, those were the only three guys who were able to topple U-Haul like that. He just was on such a different level, and, I don't mean anything against these guys here. They probably agree with me that they had to step up their game to learn how to ride with him and try to beat him.
Still up in the air as Vet
yeah.
off and
yeah, we definitely did. I know I had to step it up. I'm sure. Charlie was still the new guy and had a lot to learn. Mike was there, but I'm sure Mike had to step it up with U-Haul coming over because Watts had done this before U-Haul, but then everybody kind of I don't want to say slacked off, but everybody had a relaxed pace after Watts wasn't winning as much anymore, and then U-Haul came along and raised the bar for everyone, and we definitely had to pick it up. He was very, very talented rider, and he got the job done.
You say he raised the bar. What do you mean by that? How were things different before him?
And the 200
my opinion is it's almost like the easiest way to compare it's like the draft in NASCAR. It's like everybody, you just kind of follow along, or everybody's just, happy being behind each other, learn the track until after the halfway point of the race. And then to me, it seemed like after you gas or, the hour and a half in is whenever it was go time. And U-Haul came in and he was on the gas from the time from the race of the flag. flag. So I think that was the biggest difference is he sprinted from the beginning of the race to the end. So, and we had to learn that pace. And a few times I got him, but, it was challenging, but it was good. It was fun times.
Mike, you were the 05 National Enduro champ. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I missed some races. Well, yeah, you know what? I did. No, I won the championship 05.
So, and so you got to see kind of the way the game changed, in the emergence of U-Haul and being the National Enduro champ, the riding style, and it's just a different ball game. So talk a little bit about that, seeing success on the enduro side and then coming over and having to adapt to the way U-Haul rode GNCC racing.
Yeah, it was. I struggled so much with my setup and doing GNCCs. I wanted to do well at those. And the GNCs made me a better enduro rider for sure with the sprint. And I was excited that U-Haul would sprint off early because that was my thing. I'd sprint because I felt like I could retrail, and that was my enduro thing. And once I got to do the GNCs that way, I was like, man, I want to sprint. I could never get myself to play the game or to do the thing like Barry would say, as far as just like hang out. Him and Rodney were great at that, and then go at the end, So I was kind of excited that U-Haul would sprint. But then again, I couldn't, I don't know if I couldn't last that long, or I just couldn't get into a pace. And by the time the fourth or fifth lap came around, 2 laps forward, I was just over it. I was over the track, and I wanted the new trail or something. I just didn't like doing a lap of a beat up trail. I wanted to do like a last fresh section of an enduro type thing. So I had a hard time just playing the game, but it made me so much like that. I think it really, every time I go from enduro one weekend to doing sprints, and then the following weekend trying to do a GNCC where you had to go, at a slower pace. I just couldn't tell myself to do that. And, I tried so many different scenarios and different things, but it just never worked out. And I could never get a grasp on the tracks and that type of stuff. But yeah, it really frustrated me pretty hard especially with U-Haul being so good. I mean, the guy, he's such a good dude too, which really sucked. He was an awesome guy, and he actually helped me or tried to help me quite a few times, and I just get frustrated, spin myself into the ground more than anything. But it was difficult. But and like I say, one thing it helped me for the enduros. The other thing, it made me a better rider at some of the GNCs, and I could hang on, but with my speed, but I just could never figure them out.
So I don't want to forget about you, Charlie. We'll come back to it, but still on lap 1, it looks like U-Haul was out front. And was that Rodney Smith, I believe, in second, and then Barry, you were back in third, and Charlie, you're running about 5th right here, I believe.
Yeah, it looked like I was running behind Glenn Kearney at the time. So top 5, and going into the race, that was kind of my expectation. Kind of looking back, I was hoping to finish in the top 5 overall for the day was my goal going into it.
So on lap 1, your goal was already coming to fruition. Mike, where were you on this first lap?
I'm pretty sure I got a crappy start, but with it being tighter, I like this track being tighter. I didn't really care for it overall, but I knew I could work my way through to the front, and I remember busting my way to the front, as close as I could on the first lap or two, and then I just kind of settled in there. I don't ever really think I even got up to U-Haul before he ran out of gas or anything. I never really saw those guys. But, I always got a decent start, nothing real crazy, more worse start than ever because I had that electric start, but it wasn't real fast. And I tried kicking the bike too and hitting the electric start button, and I kind of always, fumbled it up, never really made it work. So, but I could get to the front pretty quick. But at this one, I think I just got to maybe the top 4 or 5 on the first lap or 2.
So let's pause the tape right here. Can we pause the tape real quick? So Barry, we see your face on the screen there. How old were you in this video right here?
I think I was 33, 34.
And that was 15 years ago. So, you look at that face and I look at the face that I'm talking to now. What's changed in the past 15 years,
Having kids.
Having kids.
I
Well,
Barry, I think some of your hair has moved from the top of your head to the front of your head.
Yeah, I think you. What you think?
Yeah, I see.
I'm
I
not
don't look
ashamed.
at
I'm
it.
not ashamed of my bald head.
See, I don't look at it as you losing your hair. I just look at it as it moved.
Yeah, it just moved. That's right. I'll go with that.
all right, done ragging on Barry. We can roll the tape. Charlie, we were talking about the way that the riding style changed when you all came along, and the Mike and Barry having to adapt into the way the game changed. You now, on the other hand, came during U-Haul's reign, and so you never had to experience what it was like before, and then have to adapt to life after. You kind of came and rather than after U-Haul was done, letting the game go back to the way it was before, you elevated it even further. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, the first year I was in 250A, so I was able to, see what he was doing to the guys and just sprinting real hard. And at the time, I was able to sprint pretty hard the first laps in 250A and just kind of get to the back of the pros pretty quick and just kind of work my way. And as the season went on, I felt like I just had a good natural ability with speed. And but yeah, on the start here, I never really got to run with U-Haul. It wasn't until 06 that I got to start behind him and just seeing how fast he checked out. I believe it was Florida, and when he got the whole shot and I was behind him, he was just going so fast. I just knew I couldn't hold that pace, and I think that was just, with it being my first year in the pro class, it was just something I had to work on, and just kept practicing, just speed work, riding, and then David Knight came over, and it was kind of the same scenario. It never really did get easier for us, and we just kept having to keep trying to step up. And that's, I think eventually it helped us American riders in the long run, them guys coming over and just helping with the overall speed of the American guys.
Yeah, so it kind of set the foundation for the way that GNCC is raced today. With people, it's a 3-hour sprint. Your heart rate in the 160s for 3 hours is insane.
A little higher than that. I mean, you're probably pushing. I mean, back then, I don't even think I had a heart rate monitor back then. I know the training's evolved so much, in the past 15 years. I mean, being young like that, and I know what my heart rate is now. I was probably for 3 hours, I'd say 180 average over 3 hours, and it's that technology has definitely helped the training evolve so much more in GNCC as well too.
Question for Mike and Barry: when did you find out what a heart rate monitor was?
Actually, I will say this. Back then, I did have a heart rate monitor. I was, I think Randy may have had one, but I lived and died by my heart rate monitor back then. I still have notes from years of training and riding back then. The only thing that I didn't do that I wish I would have is I never wore it at a GNCC. I wore it every day in practice. I wore it every day in training, but never for a GNCC, and I'm kicking myself in the butt today.
I was going to ask you, that would be awesome information to look at now, like heart rate pre-U-Haul, heart rate post-U-Haul, to see, what the difference there. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I had one, and I did a bunch of stuff with training-wise to see, what I needed to do to get better at GNCCs, and I kind of, like I say, it was a battle, and it's weird. I remember Jeff Russell telling me one time, I think it was at a race when we were talking about it, I had it on, and he was like, "What are you doing with that thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just, this is how it works." This and that. He's like, "I know what it is." He goes, "You need to throw that thing away." He's like, "That thing, you don't need that thing." And I remember that, I was like, "Really?" And I remember him telling me that, and just because, yeah, you just run yourself into the ground every day and you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So that was like my next thing. I'd run myself into the ground no matter what my heart rate monitor said, and thought that was the way, So I battled just because I think that back then and everybody had something different, and you had to find your unique thing. And I rode a 4-stroke, which was heavier and different, but I just could never find the mix of, what actually did do. And I did a lot of training that was probably the wrong. Well, looking back, I did a lot of wrong training. than the right stuff. I'd wear myself out on Friday before the event, and put more effort in than I did on Sunday at the event.
So we just came through the checkered or the finish line on lap 1, and we had you all out front. Rodney Smith in second. Barry, you were third. Charlie, you were fourth, and Glenn Kearney was fifth, correct? I believe that's what I just read.
Yeah. Or I don't know if Kearney was in front of me or not, but I was either fourth or fifth.
Okay. So, talk a little bit about the track. Jared, maybe step in here. I believe, was this the first year we ran in Yadkin Valley?
Yeah, it was. But actually, our buddy Bjorn Hamrick that was laying out the wood sections of the tracks back then with Jeff, he had actually raced his series there, the Mid-East Hare Scrambles. They'd had a few races there, so it wasn't a completely virgin track, but they did put in a lot of new trail for this, and they actually ran out with some stuff I don't ever remember seeing before this, and there's a couple of sections I don't ever remember riding after this. I was racing. I actually grew up maybe an hour from Yadkinville. So this was kind of the area in North Carolina I grew up in, riding a lot. And there were sections in that race I remember walking. I didn't race the morning that year. I'd broken my leg a few months prior. But stuff I walked then, we never rode again. So it was really unique.
Can you pause? I'm reading, and obviously this is one of the more unique obstacles. Dan, you can let it go a little bit. We're racing through a house. Jared, what's the story on the house?
It's one of those deals. It was there, and actually, this is something that Buren had came up with a couple years prior to that. It sat right on a good section of the track, and they said, "Hey, instead of going around this, let's go through it. A bike fits through it perfect." And the hot setup here was to start cutting your bars before you went through the door. I remember riding through there myself, and Mike should be good at that, doing the enduros and the single track.
Barry, you have tell us a story about your wife inside the house, and you remember anything about that?
I remember her. I think she was right at the exit of the house, which is just as we went through the second doorway. There was the exit was on the right, and she was right there. And she would always yell at me, "Go faster, get them now." That was always her thing. And I'd yell back, "But hey, I'm trying."
I believe I read in the Cycle News article that you would come almost to a complete stop, and she'd almost give you a real quick hug, and you didn't tell her then, but she almost ripped you off the bike.
Yeah, she wanted about Kristen. She always wanted me to win as bad as I wanted to win, and she probably was. If I wasn't winning at the time, she probably grabbed me and wanted to yank me off the bike and tell me, give me an earful and tell me get them.
So two of the biggest obstacles or spectator spots on the course are, what we just saw in the house, and this, I believe this is a water mud hole here. Charlie, what did you think of the Yadkin Valley Stomp in the track? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What was it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the track. I'd say it wasn't my favorite track, but I didn't dislike it. I always enjoyed going there, and I know the first time hitting that creek, the first lap, it caught me off guard how deep it was, but that was a cool section, like you said, with the house. But overall, I like the tightness of the track. I always liked riding the tight woods, and I don't know, that it seemed like it had a flow that suited my style well, and I like the sand creek bottoms too, and it just had kind of a little bit of everything, in my opinion, and like I said, it was just one that I enjoyed going to each year.
Mike, how about you? What did you think of the track?
Yeah, I didn't mind it. The same thing with Charlie said. The creek caught me off guard more than anything. And I don't even think back then we didn't. I mean, you walked a little bit of the track, but I don't remember that being part of the track. It really caught me off guard because I didn't know that was actually on it when we came there. So, first lap I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And I didn't realize we went in a tube and all that stuff for some reason. So I remember that part, and I did like the tightness of the track. I like it being a little tighter than some of the faster ones. That was one of my favorite, or one of my better suits to have a little bit tighter. But I didn't mind the track at all. It's actually pretty good.
Barry?
Honestly, I didn't care for the track. Although I won, it was one of my. I don't want to say I hated it. I just, for whatever reason, I didn't care for the place. And I don't know what it was. Like these guys said, it had a good mix of everything, but I can't put my finger on exactly why I disliked it, but it was just one of those tracks where I never looked forward to going to. I knew it was part of the series and had to deal with it, but yeah, I was never a fan of going there for some unknown reason.
Bolton, this would have been kind of your home racetrack. Am I right
Yeah,
or wrong?
yeah, it was. That's the until I moved to Morgantown, that was the closest I ever had a GNCC to home. I always really liked riding there. I think being a slower guy, I never was very fast, still not. But I think that the tighter stuff was more like what I grew up in, and then of course this red clay. People talk about Georgia having a lot of red clay, but North Carolina has it too. And back around like 05, 06, North Carolina had a couple of really, really dry years. So you see how dry it was in the race there. It's pretty dusty. And that's kind of like what I cut my teeth in there for quite a few years. It was always real dry and dusty, and we seem to not have much of that anymore.
So moving it more towards the middle of the race here, when did things really change, Barry, and shake up the top five?
Yeah, I think it was maybe the third lap. I think it was a 6-lap race, and typically when it's a 6-lap race, you go 3 laps, you pit at the end of the third lap, and then you got another 3 laps to the finish. And I remember going by and seeing U-Haul along the track, and like he was just looking at me like, and I didn't know what happened, and I kind of put 2 and 2 together another mile or so later, and I'd seen some KTM guys running with a gas can, and yeah, he ran out of gas. So I don't know if it was just a miscalculation on their part or what the deal was, but yeah, I was handed a gift from U-Haul, and I was trying to run him down, but yeah, he handed it to me and tried not to make any mistakes, and it worked out for me.
Not to pick a little scab, but how big was U-Haul's lead, before you ran out of gas?
I think it was 50 seconds, maybe 50. I don't know, maybe close to a minute. I actually looked this up the other day, and yeah, it wasn't a massive lead. There were some races where he would have a massive lead on us, but this one wasn't insurmountable. So
few seconds. I'm talking a handful of seconds.
So, Charlie, when in the race did you realize that this was going to be a special second XC1 race for you?
Well, I don't even remember seeing U-Haul on the trail. So at the time, I can't really remember. I know Lafferty, he kind of put on a charge, and I do remember him kind of closing the gap on me. I can't remember if he caught right up to me or not, but I think it was probably 2 laps to go when I got around Rodney. I remember passing Rodney and getting in the second, and I think it was kind of the 2 laps that I thought, oh wow, this might be a podium race for me. And luckily, I was able to kind of hold it together, not buckling. It being my first pro race, not holding the pressure or anything like that. So yeah, I'd say 2 laps ago, it started setting in that it was a possibility.
Mike, do you remember? So you're now in 4th place, I believe, on lap 3. You may have said it earlier, but what place where did you start? So how far did you climb to get to, the eventual 3rd place?
I mean, we beginning of the race, I got a crappy start, and I passed a bunch, I think, in the first couple laps. But I was settled into around 5th or 6th, if I remember right. These guys had a little bit of a gap on me. But I never saw U-Haul. But I remember those guys saying that for some other reason, I was real close to being on the podium, I think, with 2 laps to go, and that was got me recharged and said Charlie was there. And I remember thinking, man, this kid's not going to come here and freaking get on the podium and beat me this first time. So I do remember catching up to him. But I couldn't, I think he even looked back and seen it was me. I was like, shit, I'm out of here. And I'm like, damn. So, I do remember that portion, getting to him or trying to get to him, and I did, and then he just checked out on me and kind of put a sprint on. And funny thing about the KTM pits and stuff, I think what happened later is, remembering this, they built some IMS built some special tanks for us, and when they had the mold, they would pour less plastic in the mold, so the tank wasn't very thick and it would hold a little bit more.
Yeah, so right here is actually what you were just talking about. I just wanted to point that out. They're running to the woods to fill U-Haul up now, I believe.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, but I guess because they all went out there, and I think he came back by and he had a pit himself because they only gave him enough gas to get to where he had to get to the pit. But I think they ended up coming around. Like at the end of this, they put a new tank on after the break, and this is the first race with that tank, and it didn't hold as much as what they did in their the first part of the year or something. So they chalked it up to that, and it was an issue, and they were all worried about it. I remember Ron Heben being the team manager then, having a little meeting afterwards and kind of freaking out, trying to pinpoint what was going on. And it's funny because Auntie was Juha's mechanic at the time, and he was stressed big time. He was so freaking out and was wondering, trying to figure it out too. How come it didn't make it, and maybe something wrong with the bike. They were all panicking and kind of, want to have like a little team meeting afterwards and trying to get things organized. It was pretty important. I mean, they had a good cushion and stuff, but it got serious, and that's what I liked about some of that stuff. It was enough to where we're still out riding dirt bikes, but those guys were after it. Like they wanted to win. And Juha, he was a competitor, man. He wanted to win too. So and when it came down to those guys not having the calculations right, they took it pretty serious. As far as my race, I lucked into with him having the misfortune getting out of there, and then those guys, Barry and Charlie, getting away. Me trying to get up there, I was fortunate enough to get on the podium, which was good for being a race coming back after my injury.
Real quick, while we're still with you, Mike, who would you consider your biggest rival, racing?
My whole thing, I mean, I was like, my GNCC career was just kind of, I was always a fifth place guy, so I didn't have it that way, but my rival was always was in enduros with probably Randy Hawkins. So he was, Randy was always kind of the guy. When I went to enduros, he was the enduro champ for many years, and then for me to compete with him and then to race against him I think I won, I'd say maybe 6 of my championships. Randy finished second, so Randy was always a guy that would figure out how to beat me, or could beat me, or when things come down. I was a fast starter, and I could win the first couple of tests in an enduro, and Randy would always come back pretty strong at the end type thing. But Randy was probably and I would say a rival, but just a guy that I competed with constantly, and I had this, when you put your helmet on, you wanted to beat the guy, but then when you took your helmet off, he was one of those dudes too that I guess he kind of taught me how to be a champion, because he's a super solid guy, man. He knew how to he just taught me a lot besides racing. And then it was weird because I raced against him. I wanted to beat him, but then again, afterwards, when you get done, man, he'd still invite you to his house and go riding or hanging out, and taught you a lot more, Monday through Friday, that helped me in learning how to be a racer, I guess you want to say, as a profession. So that dude was, I look at him as a rival, but a guy that I competed with a lot, and I have a lot of respect for, off the track, as much as I, wanted to, beat him. He was a good guy like that. And even for Barry and these guys, I mean, when I raced GC, I went through I went through Shane, Juha's era, and Charlie coming up, and then Charlie having real success and all these things too, and then when Niter came around, I was over it. I didn't want to do GCPs anymore, so
yeah,
I finished out just doing the enduros.
So we heard from Mike. Barry, really interested. Who would you call your biggest rival on the track?
I would say it was probably David Knight. He was the one that I think looking back, I've raced a lot of different guys. He was the one that irritated me the most when he beat me, and he done it quite often. And I don't dislike him to this day. I just didn't like the way he went about racing and how he done some stuff. But yeah, that was arch nemesis in the bike world.
Charlie?
I would have to say probably Caleb Russell would probably be the biggest, person I battled the most towards the end of my career. It was kind of one of those. It got to the point it was pretty stressful, racing Caleb. Every race, is going to be a battle between either me or him, and it kind of wears on you at times. But he was a fierce competitor and still is, and he just had that refuse to lose, do whatever it takes. Not dirty riding or anything, but he would definitely. You could tell he would do what it takes to win, and luckily we never had any issues or anything hitting each other or anything like that. It was always clean racing, but definitely Caleb was the toughest competitor I had to deal with.
So we've went through 3 of the 4. Jared, I got to ask you the same question. Rod, who's your biggest?
You know what? There were to tell the truth, when I grew up racing, I wasn't any good. I just kind of went out there and enjoyed riding. But actually, I have to say my dad in a way, because there's times that depending on what series we were racing, he'd sometimes start behind me, and they're kind of towards the end. When I stopped racing a lot, we were actually both racing the 200B class or whatever, because there weren't many people in it. My dad's like, "Hey, I'll just race with you." So we kind of always had that thing, I'd try to keep him behind me or whatever. And I actually remember racing an enduro in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and we had both signed up for the 200B class, and it was the first time Citra had ever had this enduro. And my dad won, and I got second. And I beat him the last 2 sections, and I was pumped. We got 4th and 5th overall B. It was a great ride. And we're driving home, and my dad goes, "If I would have signed up for the senior class, you would have won." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, thanks a lot."
So I heard a story the other day, and I'm gonna have to ask you to tell it again. Barry, I believe we were talking about your battles with U-Haul, and just some of the back and forth between you two, and then you told a story about someone in particular crashing, and his bike and I believe himself passing you going down a hill. So tell us a little bit about that, Barry, if you would.
Yeah, actually, it was 2006. John Penton. U-Haul was leading. I don't know. I want to say it was second, third lap, something like that. U-Haul was leading. I was right on his rear tire, and Charlie Mullins was Charlie. I think you'll remember this story. Charlie was right behind me, so we were 1, 2, 3. We were going, and there was a section where there was a really, really long, steep downhill, and there were some tree stumps coming into that section at the top of it. And as soon as I was going, I started the downhill, went past a couple of the big tree stumps at the top, and I could hear a bike revving, and the bike passed me up and the rider passed me up, but they weren't together, and it was Charlie. And he flipped and rolled down the hill, and it scared the crap out of me, because I'm like, oh my goodness, this is bad for Charlie. And he was rolling down the hill, passing me, and his bike continued down the hill, just cartwheeling down the hill. And at the bottom of the hill, there was a 180 left. His bike continued down the hill and actually passed U-Haul, and U-Haul came to a stop. And he looked at me, and we both looked up at Charlie, and we could see him sitting on the ground, and we're like, man, that was bad. I hope he's okay. So we took off, and of course U-Haul won. I finished second. As soon as I crossed the finish line, I asked my wife. She was like, asked me whatever, something about U-Haul or why I got second, and I'm like, how's Charlie? And she said, I think he's still in third. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I thought he was probably going to get hauled out of here and take a visit to the hospital, but no, he got up and soldiered on and finished third. And I was it's pretty amazing. And if there was a GoPro and we could show that video today, I think you guys would all be like, holy crap, Charlie, that was impressive for you to get up and ride away. But,
yeah, luckily I was young back then. I don't think I'd be able to bounce back now like that, but I'd say that was probably. I don't really remember much of the crash, and I really don't even really remember finishing the race. I don't know if I got a concussion or not, but it knocked me silly. But I do remember kind of crossing the finish line in a daze. But yeah, that was from what Barry described. I'd say that was probably one of the worst wrecks I've ever taken.
So
Yeah, it was
look at
gnarly.
here. We got checkered flag for Barry Hawk coming in. Was it a surprise to win that day, Barry?
No, I wouldn't want to say it was a surprise. I mean, I went in every race wanting to win, not expecting to win, but wanting to win. And I was pushing myself all that year to try and run with U-Haul. And actually a few minutes ago, I looked back at the times you asked earlier. It was a minute 7 seconds whenever U-Haul had ran out of gas. I was 107 behind him. So, unless he would have made a mistake, I probably wouldn't have ran him down. And that was a lot of the races that year. He would end up getting away. But every race, I felt like I got a little bit closer to him, a little bit closer. And, that comes back to us. He made us push ourselves, and I was close at this race and in the right spot, right time, and got a win. So it wasn't a surprise, and I was happy to walk away with the win. And I don't even know how many wins I got in 2005, but it was good. It was a good day.
Charlie, second place, another good day for you. What was going through your head coming across the finish line?
I think I was probably in shock at the time, just kind of finishing, second place. It was almost like a dream come true kind of thing. And but looking at the video, I looked pretty spent. Like I think it took everything I had to get it done. But it was pretty cool to get my career kickstarted like that with some good finishes. And I'm really thankful what that result led to later on in the future with all my racing.
Mike, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was mad. I was okay with getting podiums, but I was upset because it was like the only way I got up there was U-Haul having an issue, Now, I figured I was coming at the bid or kind of getting forward. Now I was like, God, now I got this other kid, Charlie that's beat me. I'm like, man, I'm never going to get ahead on this field. So I don't know. I always, like, I just had a tough time at that, and at that day it was like, yeah, I did good, but it wasn't that, it wasn't real satisfying to get it for, on the way of U-Haul running out of gas. So, yeah, that's kind of the way I felt. I wasn't super excited.
So we're coming to the end of the road here, and I just really want to say thank you guys for joining us on this first ever Racer TV Behind the Bars. Revisiting the 2005 Yadkin Valley Stomp. And on behalf of all of us here at Racer TV, just want to thank each one of you. Hang in there, and maybe we'll have you back on the show one day. So do you have anything to add, Jared?
No. That's I look back at this, and for me, like I said, this is the part of North Carolina I grew up in. This is a really special race to me because I'd always been a really big GNCC fan, but I think to me, like having that race in Yadkinville only like an hour away, looking back, I think this is the day that I really totally fell in love with GNCC. And I'm really glad we did this one as our first one, because that race right there really holds a special place to me, even though I didn't get to ride. Like I said, I was injured, but I just remember going home from that race going, man, I had so much fun today, not even getting to ride. And that was, like I said, I think that was a day that I really knew I wanted to be involved in GNCC.
Yeah, it's been really, really cool, sitting on here and talking to you guys about the a race that happened, nearly 15 years ago. Barry, do you have anything you want to add before we sign off?
Yeah, it was a good day. Had a lot of fun, and enjoy being on here. Enjoy racing these guys, Mike, Charlie, Bolton. I'm not sure that we ever raced together, maybe.
But no, I was a little too slow for that.
Griff, I know we never raced, but I know you have I wish I had a GoPro on the day you rode my bike. That's for another day, but yeah, that was it's been fun, and yeah, I'll be love to come back on if you guys would like to have me back. So yeah, it's been fun.
Cool. Mike?
Yeah, same. Thanks for having me. It's been fun looking back. A lot of these videos are coming up on the internet lately, and I told Charlie this earlier. I was like, "Wow, some of them, I like the first couple of laps of watching them, and then I shut them off. I get pissed because I usually get my butt kicked. But it's still part of my thing, and I was part of the GNC family for so long, and I did enjoy them. I wasn't always mad. It just seemed like I could be one weekend really good at enduro and come to a DC and just get my butt handed to me. It wasn't the most exciting time, but I still enjoyed it. The races were, I had a lot of good memories, a lot of good times, and it made me a better racer all around. So I had a great time today doing this and revisiting this stuff, and same thing. If you guys that want to do this again and hang out, I'm more than willing to come and chat it up a little bit.
Hey, Griff, I want to add here to Charlie Mike keeps saying about coming to the GNCCs and getting his butt kicked. I'd done back, I don't know, 02, 03, 4, 5. There was a time those quite a few years I raced enduros, and I would go and
you did.
Lafferty would.
You were there?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you raced GNCC? But I would go to the events and the enduros. In the first couple sections, Lafferty beat me by like 45. I would come off like there's no way Lafferty kicked my butt in that one, and he would beat me by 45 seconds, and then 35 in the next one. Then by the third one, I would be close to him, and a lot of times I would beat him at the last section or last few sections, but he would always build up so much time early in the day and would kick my butt, and it was. I know how you feel going to the GNCCs, Mike, because that's how I felt at the enduros. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the one time you actually figured it out and you beat me. I think we were in South Carolina at the Little Brown Jug, and I remember being so mad because I was like, God, I could handle this guy at an enduro. Then he finally beats me at a GNC. You whoop my butt in an enduro, I get you back. And then you won the enduro. I'm like, oh my God, if this guy starts winning these enduros, I am going to be so pissed. And I was already mad.
That was not the Brown Jug. That was, my one and only national enduro win. It was Ohio. It was maybe MacArthur, Ohio. Yeah, that was, that trophy's still in my trophy room because it was my only, I won a lot of Citra enduros, but national enduro, the old school timekeeping format, I beat Mike straight up. Only one time. But
you only have one enduro win?
Really? One enduro, one national. Yep. I got about 42 second places to you.
Hey, but Charlie, who has more XC1 bike wins? You were Barry.
I don't even know how many bike wins I have. I would say probably Barry.
I know. I think I have
don't know.
19, but I don't know what Charlie has.
I think I have maybe 25 or 26, maybe. I don't know, or 23. I don't know. I think it's in the 20s, but
I thought you guys had more than that. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Charlie's got 22.
22.
And Barry's got 19. So you guys need to get back out there and see what happens.
Well, sportsman action there. Well,
yeah.
Guys, thanks again. It's been a blast. You can catch us on Racer TV Behind the Bars on the Racer TV YouTube channel. In true GNCC fashion, we'll be premiering these GNCC Behind the Bar shows Sundays at 1 o'clock. Exactly when the bikes take off, we were racing, and we look to see you back here real soon. In the words of Rodney Tomlin, have a great day and so long, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.